Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Integrity Restored podcast. I'm Jim O'Day, your host, and I'm so pleased to be joined today by Amber Rose, otherwise known as the religious hippie. Um, Amber was a cradle Catholic, fell away from the faith for a while, and then came back. And amazingly, came back with a stronger faith than ever, which is often what we hear. And now she's actually reaching out to people in her demographic specifically to help them understand the beauty and the fullness of the Catholic faith. You could check her out if you Google the religious hippie. You'll find all her social media channels and as well as her website and other resources for speaking engagements, etc. The religious hippie, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, Amber.
Thank you so much, Jim, for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, it's a blessing. I'm really excited. I've heard you on the radio, Trending with Timmery show, and thought you did a great job talking about a lot of these issues. The title of this podcast that I came up with is "Social Stuck,"
Mm, so
because
fitting.
so many of our young people are kind of stuck in this continual cycle of just spending far too much time, far too much energy, far too much mental capacity on what's going on social media. So, what would you have to say about that?
Yeah, I think it's really embedded itself into our culture. And I think it really starts with the parents. I think it's difficult because the parents today did not have technology the way that we have it today as Generation Z and whatever generation is coming after us. There's so many. And so I always view it as, the parents are the ones who kind of teach their kids how to have good boundaries with certain things. And
Yep.
unfortunately, today, a lot of parents use iPad nannies as a way to keep their kids entertained while they do other things. And this starts that addiction from a very early age. It also starts overstimulation, learning disabilities. There's so many things that screens hinder. We can also get into things why screens can be good at times. But especially for children, my hot take is I don't believe any kid should have an iPad or anything until they're probably around the age of 10 or 11, and no
Mm.
child should have social media under the age of 18. The person who invented
Wow.
social media she literally said, that social media is not for kids. It's not for teenagers. It's meant for
Mhm.
adults. So that's kind of where I would start it at is I would put it kind of on the parents. Like they're the ones who give the kids the phones, the
Yeah.
iPads. And I've had a lot of parents text me saying that their kid is like addicted and I don't know what to do or they're getting into bad things. I'm like, you bought them that phone. You own that property. You can take it away. Like it's going to get into fights, but kids don't like being controlled. But at the end of the day, you really have to think of a baby. Think of the way that you protect a baby physically from harm. You need to do the same thing, but mentally for older kids. And you protect them from that by putting, restrictions and things. Kids hate it, but it's for their own good.
It's interesting you say that because I talk all the time to parents groups, and my kids are adults now, but when they were younger, every night before bed, I would go around the house, make sure every window is closed and locked, make sure all the doors are locked, to keep them safe. So nobody bad came in to my house.
Mm,
But yet we have all these devices that we run around with and we give to our kids, and we don't think of all the bad there. When we talk about here at Integrity Restored, obviously our focus is on pornography addiction, but the average age of exposure to hardcore pornography is between 8 to 10 years old. Where is that
mm.
happening? Generally, it's happening on technology that the parents give the kids. And when I grew up, if you saw a Playboy magazine, that was a big deal. Nowadays, that's completely tame to what the kids are seeing. I was reading an article recently in Christianity Today, and it talked about three ways that social media is damaging to the faith. And
Mm,
the first way it said, and this was very interesting because of our work here at Integrity Restored, it said that it allows room for secret sin. Social media is the perfect breeding ground for secret sin. When used with a motive to commit sin and hide it, social media becomes a bane, not a balm. When people use social media with an intention to do wrong, it becomes very easy. And because it's anonymous, or you can even carry a different identity, the temptation to hide this behavior becomes greater. What do you think about that statement? I thought that was really interesting. That was number one on the list, is that people can
Yeah.
hide behind social media and probably do things they might not otherwise do.
No, absolutely. I see this time and time again. That's why it's so important for me to have a spiritual director because he keeps me on track. I love him. But I've seen it so often in my line of work because I run my own ministry. I'm constantly interacting with other Catholics and I'm interacting with non-Catholics as well. But this is the reason we have so many scandals, if you think about it, because people think on one side, oh, on social media, they're so perfect, they're so awesome. And then something happens that doesn't align with their perfect social media presence, and boom, this huge explosion happens, a scandal happens. Um, I think we become desensitized to that because it happens every day. Every day there's a new scandal. Somebody's not who they say they are. Somebody pretended to be somebody else and it's actually
Mhm.
this person. I mean, it's insane. I witnessed it firsthand. I posted a mass photo and it blew up on Twitter. I got dragged through the mud a ton. And it was very interesting to see how some people who not necessarily followed me, but have met me in person before, started dragging me through the mud. And then they met me and then they were like, oh no, actually, you're really cool. And like, you are who you say you are. But people will hide behind
Yeah,
the screen to just have an opinion. And I think these days, everybody wants an opinion on everything. And if you don't have a face, then you can have an opinion no matter what. And you can
as
just delete your
crazy as
account
that
if you want.
opinion is, right? Right.
Yes. And it happens so often.
One of the other dangers, I think, Amber, is you said it. These people, when you're watching their social media feeds, doesn't matter who they are, a celebrity or even a normal, quote
Hmm.
unquote, normal person. Um, they're putting up the best 3 seconds of God
Yep.
knows how many clips. And what this causes, I believe, is kind of this ramping up of incredible low self-esteem that so many people have today because their life doesn't match up to that vision of perfection that literally is 3 seconds of somebody's day.
Yeah, we see that a lot with celebrities. I think my generation especially is susceptible to that because
Mm-hmm.
we're constantly bombarded with, oh, the perfect body, the perfect hair, the perfect skin, the perfect this and that. And nothing's perfect, right? We're God's children. We're not perfect. We won't be perfect till we get to heaven. But being tempted by those things to have like, an hourglass figure or to have
Mm-hmm.
money for the fanciest silk dresses, it can be very, I feel like it's more tempting for women than men in a lot of ways, but it definitely goes both ways.
Well, it does. And there's an interesting thing that's some people are starting to look at it now with men in particular. With men watching pornography, there's huge body dysmorphia issues about
Mm,
how muscular they are or how quote unquote big they should be in a certain area of their body. You're looking at number one, outliers. Men who are in
yeah.
that industry tend to be not your average guy, let's say, and camera angles and medicines and a lot of other things are at use. And yet, young guys today, many of them, I hear from them here at Integrity Restored, while they're completely normal, they don't feel that way. And so
Mm,
I think it's not only um, for women, but it's also for men because if you don't have enough money or you're not driving a Ferrari or you don't have the right clothes or the right bling, I guess it's not bling anymore, it's drip, uh, the right chains, the right, it's, it's almost an impossible chase um, that people are doing. So they don't relate well then one-on-one in real life situations. And that's where my biggest concern is, Amber, is how do we get back to
Mhm.
that where people can have these one-on-one conversations and real relationships without texting or DMing each other?
Yeah, I definitely think since COVID, my generation everybody's generation, but especially Gen Z, because they were just kind of getting out of high school into high school, like that area. It's a very forming time for them. And
Mm-hmm.
that was how they were finding non-isolation. Even though it's called social media, I feel like isolation media would be a better term for it because
I agree.
it's not the same. And I mean, growing up, I had online friends and I loved them dearly. And, I formed those connections, but those were through Skype. Um, and even then, I don't suggest Skype to form relationships unless it's a long distance relationship. You're trying to keep things going. Um, I definitely think that there's that big problem because since COVID, everyone's kind of felt isolated. There's been a lot of mental health
Mm-hmm.
issues. I feel like the main way that we get back to normal is by kind of forcing ourselves into those situations. And for me, I'm an introvert, so it's a lot harder for me to be able to connect with people right on the spot. I'm usually an observer. So I observe the situation. I see, like, okay, who would I connect best with? And then usually I kind of just like slowly weasel my way into their life. It's interesting how it works, but it does work. I think social media could be a great introductory into like a friendship if you guys are like a part of the same group or something, like,
Right.
oh, we should go to this youth group together. But when it comes to sustaining good relationships, you have to go for coffee dates. You have to go for, go thrifting together, do fun things together. I feel like nowadays, I don't want to say everyone's super boring, but a lot of people that I have met, they don't want to do anything. They just want to sit and watch Netflix and like get pizza and like have drinks. And I think that's fun. But I don't think
Sometimes.
that it's as fun. Yeah, but I don't think it's as fun as like going somewhere and doing something like physical, like going for a hike or camping or those things that really kind of bring people together. Because if you're looking at a screen, that's not really bringing you together. Having face-to-face conversations brings you together.
Right. Well, one of the things we know here at Integrity Restored is that pornography addiction, as you increase in the addiction, you start to really ignore the relationships in your quote unquote real life.
Mm.
Um, the virtual relationships become more important, and I think the same can be true for people with increased social media usage or dependence. Um, that the real life relationships become more difficult, right?
Mm,
It's
mhm.
much easier just to DM or chat with somebody online than to get up and go out and make that date for a cup of coffee and jump in your car and go to the coffee shop, blah, blah, blah. So I think that's one of the areas where we have to look at in our own lives and say, wait a minute, am I isolating more than normal or not? What do you think?
I agree. I think we do tend to have a bad habit of isolating instead of putting in the effort
Mm,
because, I mean, especially in today's world, trying to seek out sacrificing is very hard. I feel like we're constantly gratified by everything we have, everything we do. And so, you know what? If I made plans with that friend, but I don't feel like going, I'm going to cancel because at the end of the day, it's about me. And it's like, okay, if you're sick or something, different. But if you made plans, stick to those plans. Even though you don't feel like it in that moment, I guarantee you'll be fine as soon as you get there. It's literally the anticipation of everything is what does my generation in is the anticipation. We're like, oh, but I have to drive there and I have to sit down and I have to wait and it's gonna be awkward and it's gonna be weird. Maybe for like 5 seconds, but then once you get into a conversation, it'll be fine.
Well, and it's
I
not
think we
just
test
your
each other out.
generation, Amber. I think that's, kind of a human condition now. Um,
True, true.
we one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was when when we're trying to reach out to people, we can use social media to do that. I think I'd like you to talk about your ministry a little bit and how you're using social media to do that. But then also, how do we go from that to that real interpersonal connection?
Yeah. So start with my social media. So I didn't really start I started it, but God kind of gave it to me. So I first came back into my faith and I was lonely. I was really lonely. I didn't know anybody who was Catholic. I was kind of in this by myself. My parents weren't practicing anymore.
Mhm.
And so I didn't feel like I could really go with anybody or hang out with anyone. So I wanted to get personal experiences from people online who were my age. I couldn't find anybody, literally nobody.
Wow.
All I found were like, Matt Fradd, Catholic Answers, and nothing against guys who are talking about those types of things. I think that's great. But I
Hmm.
was specifically looking for people my age who maybe women, maybe not, but somebody my age who was discussing their faith, something similar. I wanted to
Hmm.
be related to. And I found nobody. And maybe that's because I didn't look hard enough. There weren't that many people out there at the time. I don't know. But I looked for weeks and I couldn't find anyone. And so I kind of just had the bright idea. I was like, I'm going to be that person for people. And keep in mind, I was a baby Catholic. I had no idea what I was doing, but I kind of started by just posting a video of my rosary and Chick-fil-A. It was really dumb, but that's the video that kind of just started it all and it just took off. I gained about, I think it was almost 10,000 followers in 2 days.
Wow.
And it was crazy. It was crazy. So I kind of started there. I was like, it was overnight. And I was like, I don't know what to do. And then all of a sudden, magazines were reaching out to me. All of a sudden, Catholic News Agency wanted to talk to me, the registry, everybody. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing because I'm a baby Catholic. Um, but you know what? Social media really helped me in that area because people came to me for advice. They asked me a
Hmm.
bunch of questions. And when they asked me questions, well, obviously I have to give them the truth. So I would go and I would find the truth and then I would come back and I'd tell them. And through that process of being asked questions, having to find the answer and coming back and explaining it to them, I learned a lot about Catholicism. Um, and so I was able to continue this ministry into what it is today. And it's just been a very wholesome experience just trying to help people. And, when you get those emails about people who came back to the faith because of something you
Hmm.
said or a video you did, it's just such a moment to see how God works through people.
Hmm.
And, because that's how it is. I'm a tool in his hands. I'm simply just,
Yeah.
I don't want to say puppet, but like, I'm a tool. So,
I call them when those happen to me, and it happens a lot when you're doing God's work. Little God kisses, right? He's telling you
oh,
you're
yeah.
doing the right thing. Keep it up. And sometimes, as you know, this work can be lonely, and this work can be like, why am I doing this? Um,
Mm,
but then you get one of those little God kisses, and you go, okay, now I get it. So uh,
exactly.
don't give up. Keep doing what you're doing. It's amazing. If people wanted to learn more about you, um, if they wanted to bring you in to speak, where would they go to find more information?
Yeah, you can go to my website. It's thereligioushippie.com. And under there, you'll find a tab at the top, and it can go down to basically how to contact us. And
Mhm.
there's just a little form there, and you can just fill it out. It makes it really easy. So you can tell me how many people will be there, where the location is, if it's a podcast or if it's a speaking engagement, whatever you want.
Mhm.
Makes it super easy.
Perfect. Perfect. All right, so we have a few minutes left here, and I just wanted to have you talk directly to our listeners, whether they're Gen Z or millennials or boomers or parents, grandparents,
Mm.
clergy, doesn't matter. If you had to tell them just one thing to change in social media usage today, what would that be?
It's okay to keep things private. I think that's something we miss a lot today is that everybody thinks that as soon as something amazing happens to them or horrible happens to them, they have to tweet about it. They have to put it on Instagram. It's okay to have secrets from social media. Not everybody needs to know about what you had for breakfast. Not everybody needs to know that it's your son's birthday. Nobody
Mm,
even needs to know it's your birthday. Um, I think it can also, I think it feeds kind of a seed of pride in us when we post something. And it could be as innocent as possible, honestly. It could be your birthday. You post a photo about yourself. Like, but it eventually feeds that vanity and that pride where we're like, oh, we're really important. Like, this is about us. And in reality, I think social media should be used to promote God, not
Mm.
ourselves. And so I obviously fall short. I'm not perfect. I don't claim to be perfect. I'm going to make mistakes. And when I do, I love it when people reach out to me through email and they tell me, like, hey, maybe you didn't word this the best. But they always do it in such a kind way that I'm always
Hmm.
super receptive of it. Um, and of course you get the haters too, but like I appreciate them as well. Haters will be prayed for. It's my motto. Um,
I love that motto.
but thank you. It's perfect, honestly, for this line of work.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would definitely say please be able to keep privacy on social media because social media is not private and that stuff is out there forever. And there might be some
Mhm.
things you regret. And we see that constantly these days with old tweets and posts coming up from celebrities
Yeah.
about things that they said previously that were okay maybe back then, but now it's no longer appropriate. So just keep your privacy, keep your peace, and
Or even
shut your phone off when something's wrong.
maybe their attitude has changed towards a certain
Mm,
topic, right? They've grown, they've come
exactly.
back to the faith, for example, or something like that. I think that's great advice, and I think we all should be more careful with what we
Yes,
share on social media and the amount of time we spend on there, because where you put your time is what you love. And so we need
true.
to be very, very careful about our social media usage. Amber, this was an awesome conversation. Thank you so much for coming on the show, and God bless
Yeah.
you and all the important work you're doing.
Thank you so much, Jim. I really appreciate being on. I'm praying for you guys always. So I will hear you on Timmery.
All right. Thanks very much. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, thanks for listening, and may God bless your journey.